Good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Morris. I am the Director of Business Development for Gaming for GTS Distribution. Welcome to 2020. Welcome to a new year. Welcome to a new decade, literally, as it says. We are here with our first retailer to publisher webinar, and I am really, really happy about this one. I'm really excited about this one. So the gentleman's beautiful smiling face that you are looking at is Josh Welgus. He is the designer and director of marketing for Chip Theory Games. In the background there, hiding in the corner, is Andrew Chesney. He is the director of sales for them as well. If you are not familiar with Chip Theory Games, this is going to be a very, very fun and entertaining webinar. If you are familiar with Chip Theory Games, you're probably going to learn a lot more, because this is the first time that Chip Theory Games is working with a distributor to bring their games to hobby retailers through hobby retail distribution. In the past, they have been a direct to consumer type customer or publisher, and we'll talk a little bit about that, I'm sure. I do want to give a little story because there's a little bit of history between myself and the Chip Theory owners. So Josh and Adam Carlson, they're the owners, and I met them at Gen Con, and it was literally almost 5 years ago now. And a friend of mine, complete random friend, was like, hey, you gotta, like, he was texting me, he goes, you gotta come over here. We're in the food court in that little corner area. Like, if you could come over, we're playing this amazing war game. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, I'm free, I'll be over there. And I came over, and that's where I met Adam and Josh, and they were showing off their first version of Hoplomachus, which you see Hoplomachus Origins there beside Josh right there. And it was literally two guys had designed their game, had made their game, and it was beautiful even back then with the chips and everything that was involved with it. And they were just at a lunch table trying to get as much attention as possible. They didn't have a booth, they didn't have marketing, they weren't like officially there. It was just, we're just gonna claim this table and this is how we're gonna start. And it was the definition of bootstrap to me. I mean, it was literally like, if you could take a picture of two people and say, this is what entrepreneurism means, this is what they were doing. Like, they were taking as many risks as possible. And it was really, really cool. And I'm really happy to say I got a copy of Hoplomachus, and I still have that original copy of Hoplomachus. I still play it, and I've been with it the entire 5 years that it has grown and grown up. But apart from just that, they have become a company that is very, very big, very, very fast on the rise, very, very popular on the publishing side and game side. Their games are really high quality. Their games are very, very unique, and they're very different, which is something that I think is really important nowadays in the retail community, being able to separate yourself from the things that are on the shelf. And we're going to talk about two very key lines today. We're going to talk about Hoplomachus, and we're going to talk about Triplock. I don't want to steal any more thunder, so I'll kick it over to Josh. I'll let him get started. But just as a reminder, if anyone has any questions, like I always say, everything is on the table. You're welcome to ask anything you'd like. Or in this case, everything is on the plane wing, because that's the tables that the guys have in the office are giant aviation plane wings, which is really, really awesome. But if you have a question, feel free to let us know. You can open up the chat window at the bottom. You can type in a question to all the panelists or to all the panelists and attendees. Basic difference, panelists are myself and Josh. The attendees are all the retailers as well. So with that, thank you very much for joining, Josh. Really looking forward to this, and I will let you take over the floor.
Yeah, awesome. I'm going to try to look at the camera when I'm talking. I got a dual monitor thing going on here, and I'm hoping I'm not awkwardly side glancing all the time. But hey, everybody, thanks for joining us. As Scott said, I'm Josh Welgus. I'm a designer, not the designer, but a designer here at Chip Theory and the director of marketing. The owner and lead designer of the company, Josh Carlson, obviously it's also named Josh, and so everybody calls me Gilly here in the office. You can call me really whatever the heck you want. I don't really care. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in. I want to start by just talking a little bit about Chip Theory and who we are and what we're all about. Hopefully, by looking around, kind of in the background, you get a sense of the fact that we don't maybe necessarily do everything the way you might be used to in the board game space, and even just in general. We are a company that, as Scott said, started about roughly 5 years ago with a vision for really just making the types of board games that our owners, Josh and Adam, wanted to play. So games with really, really kind of blinged out components, really, really in-depth strategy, heavily inspired by a lot of old computer strategy games that Josh and Adam grew up playing. And really with an attitude that nothing is off limits in terms of a board game production. So the original Hoplomachus game that Scott was talking about, it uses, that was kind of our thesis statement in some ways. It was our first game to use neoprene and poker chips. We love the way that feels aesthetically. There's a reason that going to a casino and playing poker with chips on neoprene feels good. It's fun to sit there and stack the chips and what have you. So Josh and Adam really, they designed with that in mind, and wanted to create a game that felt different than what they had seen and played on the market, and that was also able to be done, in a reasonably efficient production model, especially for a game that originally on Kickstarter had, something like 150 backers. So. And we've continued that, and the company has continued to grow. Many of you are probably familiar with Too Many Bones, a game that includes 130 handmade custom dice right out of the box and die-cut neoprene mats. We've continued that with our latest game, Cloudspire, which also has die-cut neoprene hexes that fit together on the table. But yeah, really just the mission and the vision of the company is to continue to do things that are different, that are unique, and that don't pay any attention to, well, I shouldn't say we don't pay any attention to it, but try to not worry about what a game's going to cost, not worry about what we're going to have to market at, not care as much about margins, I think, as a lot of other companies do. We do care about margins, obviously, which is part of why we haven't been in distribution in the past. But that's really what we're all about. Gameplay first, obviously. There's got to be a great game behind it. We don't overproduce for the sake of overproduction. But once we've got a great gameplay concept in mind, we pull out all the stops. Nothing is off limits to make that experience as amazing and beautiful and wonderful and blinged out as we possibly can. So I think another thing that really sets us apart as a company, and hopefully in your game stores you're seeing more and more people coming in and looking for this kind of content, but we also have a massive focus on solo content in our games. A huge part of our established fan base that come and back us on Kickstarter are big time solo gamers. Our latest game, Cloudspire, has a big book, a scenario book that is just solo scenarios. And so that's another thing that has kind of put us on the map, not just throwing in a solo mode for the heck of it and kind of, or tweaking one or two rules to play the game solo. We really focus on making sure that every one of our games has a really strong solo component. And then, as Scott mentioned, so in the past it's been all direct to customer, and we're still following that model on our really big titles, such as Too Many Bones and Cloudspire. I'm sure there'll be some questions about that, and I can answer those later. But to this point, because of the production level of our games and because of what I would call a very conservative growth model in the past, we have been very careful to only sell direct so that we can produce whatever game we want in whatever way we want and make sure that we still make enough money off of each sale in order to continue to manufacture that and stay in business. Now, as we've grown and become a lot more popular, we're able to do a lot more sales throughout the year. For the first time ever, we are looking at putting two of our lines into distribution, and this is really for us a way to test the waters. We've wanted to do distribution on some level since the company's inception, but the manufacturing costs of our games are so high. There's no cardboard components in any of our boxes, save for like rule books and sometimes scenario cards and that kind of thing. So all of our chips you'll see are hand stickered in the factory. Most of our dice are custom made and hand printed. So these are things that just they up the cost of our games a lot, and distribution hasn't made sense. So, but we're excited to dip our toe in this water and see if this is something that can work for us in the future, whether that be through future titles or continuing to expand on offering Hoplo and Triplock, that kind of thing. We're going to pay really close attention to how this first deal goes with GTS to see if it's something that makes sense for us to do in the future. So yeah, that's a little bit about who we are and where we're going. You know, we're going to continue to make whatever games we think will be within our company ethos. That might mean we continue to make these massive, crazy games like we've been making, or it may mean, you know, if we have a great idea for another small box game like Triplock, more of those may be coming in the future as well. So yeah, with that, I'm going to jump into, first I'm going to talk about our Hoplomachus line a little bit, and then we'll talk about Triplock a little bit, and I'm going to switch over and show my slideshow here.
While you're switching over, Josh, I want to jump in and add something for the retailers too. So if you don't know, we probably should have said this at the very beginning, but Josh touched on it a little bit. The key component in all of Chip Theory games are the poker chips, and they are really high quality poker chips. And I say that because it's one of the types of games, whether Hoplomachus or Triplock or whichever game we're looking at, it's the type of game that when you have it on display in your store as a demo, or you have it just on display for people to see and touch, it's definitely one of those tactile games that you're like, wow, I really want to get into this. So I'm happy to say that we have worked out a deal with Chip Theory to have them be part of the GTS demo program as well. So if anyone after seeing the presentation today is interested in getting a copy of Origins or Triplock as a demo game in your store, let your GTS sales rep know. We can work that out for you and get you set up for that, because it'd be really, really impactful to have that on the shelf or on the table at the store.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just, like I said, I mean, like I mentioned, when you go to if you go and sit down at a poker table with poker chips on neoprene, there's just something about picking them up and clacking them together and playing with them that invites people to walk in, take a look, and touch and feel, and it feels different. So hopefully everybody can see on their screen. So these are the three big standalone titles in the Hoplomachus line. So we've got Hoplomachus Lost Cities, which is kind of covered up in the back, Rise of Rome, and Origins. Most of the mechanics that I'm going to talk about and cover at a 20,000 foot level are going to apply to all three games. They're backwards and forwards compatible with each other. We're going to spend most of the time, though, talking and highlighting Hoplomachus Origins, which you can see in the front there, and I think is, right there. And the reason for that is we think this is the one that's best suited for retail. It's the fastest one to demo. They're all available through GTS. However, this is the one that we would recommend. You know, if you're going to choose one, if you're going to start with one, this would be the one that we're going to highlight. So the Hoplomachus line is you know, Scott kind of alluded to the fact that it's kind of like a war game. It is a gladiatorial combat squad tactics skirmish game. And so you can see in Hoplomachus Origins, there are 3 different maps that you play. They're all neoprene. Everything you see, this is stock in the box. And you will be controlling an army of gladiators, and you are trying to, in standard Hoplomachus, Lost Cities, Rise of Rome, you're trying to take out your opponent's champion. In Origins, each of these maps actually has its own objective that you are trying to achieve. One of them is King of the Hill, one of them is kind of a twist on Capture the Flag, and the other plays more similar to the original Hoplo titles, where you are trying to take out your opponent's champion. So units spawn on the bloody hexes that you can see on that Xanadu map in front of you. They move around. They're going to roll dice for combat, and it's really the base mechanics of the game are really fairly simple. I wanted to show this slide of these chips really up close. This is cropped in so you can get a better view. As I mentioned, on your turn in Hoplo, basically you can spawn a unit, you're going to move that unit, and then that unit is going to attack or perform an ability. That seems really, really simplistic at its core, but what makes Hoplo really, really unique and gives it a really, really deep strategy and awesome kind of depth curve is all these abilities that you can see listed on these chips. So on the chips, you can see these are unit chips from the game and a few tactic chips as well. But you can see their health, attack, their movement, and then their tactical range, which is how many hexes they can use a tactic within. But then you can see they've got dice right underneath the unit name. That's those colored dice have different odds of hitting, and then you can see abilities below that. So you know, for example, the attacker, which is kind of in the center of your screen, orange chip. he can roll as a standard attack the black, blue, and yellow dice, so he's got a really good chance of hitting heavy. That would be a standard attack. Or he can choose to do an alternate attack and roll 1 yellow die, and if he hits, he's going to hit everybody that is adjacent to him. So there's all these unique abilities. That's just one example, but every unit is going to have 1 or 2 of these unique abilities. And so trying to find synergies within your units and use them in addition to your standard attacking is something that really makes Hoplo a really deep strategy game with really, really simple mechanics that are quick to learn. So there's 3 different arenas. I mentioned Xanadu here is kind of glorified king of the hill. You've got Atlantis here that is, again, you're trying to take out your opponent's champion. And then in El Dorado, it's a twist on capture the flag where you're trying to capture or you're trying to deliver your chest to the opponent's chest. You can see the 2 pillars there on the side. So that's a really, really quick rundown on Hoplo. The reason I'm covering Origins again is because these are quick. So any of these arenas can be played in roughly 15 minutes once you know how the game works. Rise of Rome and the Lost Cities are going to be much larger battlefields. They're going to be, an hour to an hour and 15-minute games. But Origins plays really, really fast and is easy to demo, and also has a much smaller box than the other ones. I know that is something that retailers are very sensitive to. With the number of games coming out these days, a large box that's going to sit on a shelf and take up a bunch of space is not always super appealing. So the Origins box is pretty small. I'm going to flip back to...
I'm going to jump in and add something, if you don't mind, real quick, Josh.
Go for it.
Things that I mentioned earlier about the quality of Chip Theory Games products, you saw there a little bit on the mats. They have stitching along the edge of the mats, which are absolutely fabulous. One of the things that I've personally loved, and talking to a lot of the community members, and believe me, if you want to find a publisher that has a strong community, it's Chip Theory Games, without a doubt. But one of the things that I have found from the Hoplomachus side of the community is that it's a game that, while Josh said it's very simple to learn, very easy to pick up, and then very deep in strategy, it's a game that is very visual because all of the units are stacked on those health poker chips. Mm-hmm. So someone who is watching a game of other people playing, or even in your own game, it's superbly easy and very quick to be able to see the game state as to who has an advantage and where they may have an advantage. And that's been something that has helped me when I've introduced it to new players as well, just having that visual capability to know, oh, that guy's got a lot of health, we got to take him down, or that guy's about to go out, we should really focus on that guy. Really, really cool. Yeah, there you go. Josh showing some of it right there.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And so I should mention, so these unit chips that I'm holding up right here, which are the ones that you saw the zoomed in view in the PowerPoint presentation, but these are all 11.5 gram heavy poker chips. And then we've got the health chips, which in Origins, we have 2 different colors of health chips, and I'll explain why that is in a second. These health chips are a little bit lighter. We do sell heavier premium health chips, but yeah, so when units are stacked on the mat together, and one unit is really weak and one unit is strong, you get this you can read the battlefield really, really fast in terms of who's more powerful and who is weaker, who might be good for a kill shot, that kind of thing. So yeah, very good point. Thanks for bringing that up, Scott. Then I'll also mention, so the other thing about the Hoplo line would be on the bigger games, Rise of Rome, Lost Cities, you take command of one specific lost city. So you're going to play as Pompeii or Rome or Xanadu, and you're going to control units all from that one city, and they're all going to be one color. So these guys are blue. In Hoplo Origins, there's a draft mechanic where you are actually, you can choose units from any city to build a army of about 7 units that you're going to take in battle on each of the 3 arenas. So that is another thing that makes Hoplo Origins really unique. It rewards having more Hoplo games as well, because you have more units than to choose from and draft from throughout the game. So let's see. The other thing that I was just going to mention real quick. So again, the emphasis on solo play. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Ricky Royal, Box of Delights, a very popular YouTube vlogger in the board game community. Hoplomachus is actually his. He's big on solo gaming, I should say. And Hoplomachus is his #1 solo game of all time. He ranked it above Mage Knight, which was controversial at the time. Lots of people insinuated that we had paid him off, which was funny because we didn't have any money to be paying anybody off at the time. So, Hoplo Origins comes with actually 20. This is the reference card for how to use it, but it comes with 20 really quick solo challenges that players can play through, and they obviously scale in difficulty and get much more difficult as things go on. And again, each of them only takes 15, 20 minutes to play. So there are larger solo scenarios built into Rise of Rome and Lost Cities, but it's going to be about an hour, half an hour to an hour play. Whereas in Origins, again, we hear all the time, I love Origins because I can set it up in 5 minutes. I can play one solo scenario in 15 minutes, put it back in the box and put it away, as opposed to larger games, our own games like Too Many Bones, which take a long time to play through, or things like Gloomhaven, where you're going to spend 45 minutes setting up one solo scenario before you actually get to play. So that's another thing that makes Origins unique and really, really popular. So that's Hoplo in a nutshell. I don't know if there are any specific questions about Hoplomachus directly.
There haven't been anything popping up in the chat window right now. I think I've been watching it, and I think Andrew's been watching it in between his sips of coffee as well. But
okay, perfect.
yeah, if anyone does have questions that you have anything specific on, just so everybody knows, all of the base games of Hoplo come 4 to a case, just because they are obviously a little heavier and chips and everything like that. So if you do order a case, or if you're ordering like 3, then maybe going to 4 might be easier for ordering the case or something like that. But yeah, for sure, the quality on those games are superbly high. One of the interesting things to me is that the lore that you guys put into the games, like each individual universe, so to speak, has so much stuff back behind it, and there's so much attention to detail around making each experience. While all of the games share the poker chips, they all have their own feel, they all have their own kind of genre, and they all have their own kind of experience that the players get to go through. So it's very, very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, I'll jump into Triplock a little bit here. I'm going to get my PowerPoint ready to show this off. So the other game that our game series that we're putting into distribution, sorry, looking at the camera, there we go, is Triplock. So Triplock is very, very different from Hoplo, and really from most of the other games in our pantheon. So Triplock is a very, very fast to play puzzle competitive game. The theme on it is steampunk lockpicking. So everybody's favorite theme, obviously, and you can probably tell from looking around back here, we have a little bit of a steampunk fetish going on over here. But so Triplock, thematically speaking, you are attempting to solve lock diagrams faster than your opponent when you play PvP, and then there is a full solo campaign for it as well, which has some crazy sort of like time travel, evil corporation things going on in a corrupt alternate universe city called New London, where you can you take the role of various characters trying to work their way through a kind of corruption, time travel, sci-fi, steampunk theme. So Triplock is, I'm going to share my screen with you all again. There we go. All right, so this is a diagram of what Triplock looks like on the board, but basically there's going to be 4 unique stacks in the middle they kind of look like Oreo cookie stacks. I'll show you on camera in just a second, but there's a whole bunch of hidden icons basically, and characters or players are drawing diagram cards. So you can see a diagram card in the top middle, and you are attempting to arrange the stacks in the middle on the mat in a way that matches the icons on one of your cards. So at the beginning of the game, all the information is hidden. So all of those stacks in the middle, all the icons are not known. You roll dice, which give you the option to do different things with the stacks in the middle, whether it's peeking, whether it's removing a failsafe. We call the black chips failsafes. The yellow chips on the inside are mechanisms. And so you can take 2 actions that you roll on your dice, or you can choose to forego your dice roll altogether and take 1 action of your choice. The stacks will be moving around and cycling through. They'll be flipping over back and forth. And then as the game goes on, more and more fail-safes are removed, and more information becomes public. More of those icons become public information. And then you're basically trying to score 7 points first to win the game. So the way that you score points is by solving diagrams, which are those icon orientations on the diagram cards that you see up in the top middle. This is a quick look at all the different icons that are in the game, or I guess not all of them, most of the icons that are in the game. So they're not super easy to remember. So there's a memory component, especially in the early game, where you're trying to figure out. There's that one in the bottom left. That's the push icon. There is another one called the pull icon that looks exactly the same, except the arrow is going the opposite direction. So it's a really fun and clever brain burner. Again, that plays in about 15 minutes in most cases. So, and then as I mentioned, the base game comes with 5 solo scenario rooms, puzzle rooms that you get to solve on your own. And then there are these there's 3 additional solo packs that are available that kind of complete the story and have a bunch of other new and interesting mechanics. So I'm going to switch back to the camera so I can show you a few things right out of the box. So I don't know if I mentioned this as well. So all these cards that are in all our games too, these are PVC. So these are not cardboard. They are waterproof, spill proof. From what I hear and what I've read online, they are not ketchup proof. Don't forget it. Ketchup is apparently
that's their kryptonite is ketchup, huh?
Exactly. Yeah. Apparently ketchup is too acidic. And it can eat into the coating on PVC. I don't know. I've never tested that. So
very, very good for our customers who have cafes to know, actually. So,
yeah. Well, right. Yeah.
Actually, I mean, I'm proud to admit it. I have spilled a beer on my copy of Hoplomachus once, but
hey, that is fantastic.
Perfectly fine. We had to wring out the mat a little bit.
You got to break it in, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the Triplock box, we've got a bunch of character cards and bios. These are all, again, on PVC. Then we've got the solo cards, but the chips I wanted to hold up. So again, at the beginning of the game, your board will be set up with all these little sandwiches, like so that are unique on each side. So you're trying to basically, you get opportunities to peek and see what's underneath them. Sometimes they're going to flip upside down. It messes with your head a lot, which is what we love about it. So, and I am tremendously bad at it because I'm not great with remembering things in general. So, and then the mat for Triplock, it actually comes in this little tube right here, but it unfolds like so. So again, neoprene. These ones are not edge stitched. The reason for that is that when you edge stitch a mat that's this small, it tends to like crumple and it doesn't handle edge stitching very well. Is the point. We also have a big deluxe play mat, which I should have grabbed one, but it's a big mat that's got places to put all your cards and that kind of thing. And there's a big die cut in the middle that you actually put this guy right in the middle to complete the mat if it's in like a puzzle piece. So yeah, so again, Triplock plays in about 15 minutes. There are also the other thing I didn't cover in terms of mechanics. There are, if I can find them.
And you're not kidding when you say that it's a brain burner. This is a game that seems so simple, right? There's just exactly. Clear dice, take your actions, peek at things, flip things over, and then suddenly your opponent is doing different things than you expected them to do, and you have to remember, wait, what did I do? Where did I move things? Where did he move things or she move things? It's a game that is extremely deceptive, in my opinion, in terms of the depth of strategy that's in it. for the size of the box that it looks to be, and the amount of components that are inside of it. It's a really, really, really deep game to be able to dive into.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then there's 6 character cards, 6 unique characters in the game. You have your standard actions that you can take, and then depending on which character persona you assume, you can take. There's an additional action or additional thing you can do. Each character has, or each player has a bead that they can use in various ways. They can move it along different tracks to score points, or you can place it on a stack, depending on your character ability, to prevent people from flipping it or looking at it, things like that. And then there's ways to cancel the bead. There's a lot more going on. I just don't want to give a full rules breakdown. Really what you need to know is 15 minutes it's a brain burner. Don't play it when you're tired. Don't ever play Triplock when you're tired. So that's Triplock. Like I said, we do have that deluxe mat that's available. We have the solo episodes that are available. Again, five solo scenarios come base in the box. And I guess the other thing that I would just say about Triplock, it's another one that just invites people to come up and look at it and touch it and kind of experience it. When we put it out at Gen Con, it gets just as much attention as anything else that we have in our booth, simply because the overall aesthetic and package and the sort of steampunk vibe on it. There's a picture on the inside of the box, which more people are doing that now, but we were one of the first. I just want to say that out loud. It's just a really, really attractive, really, really small box that packs a lot of punch for a fairly small price point. And again, so the MSRP on Triplock is $30, but again, when you look at the components and you experience the overall package, you're like, oh my gosh, that feels like that should be more than $30 actually. So we're really proud of this one.
It's a game that is, depending on how much space that you have from a retail perspective to do demos or to have things on display, it is a very small, compact game, but it is a game that when it's out and it's physically available to, play and move around and touch, it's definitely a very tactile experience. So, like I mentioned before, the Chip Theory games are going to be available for the retailer demo program through GTS as well. So if anyone does want to have that, then that's a good option. It looks like Andrew is secretly in the back getting a deluxe playmat.
He's assembling some sort of
in a architect tube. Yep.
Yeah. So okay. So Andrew has the deluxe playmat here. So this is we sell this for $30. It comes in that ridiculous tube that is
gigantic,
hard case plastic, and then. So this is how you get your Triplock edge stitching right here.
This is where you go from I own the game to I own everything from the game.
Right, yeah, here we go. So one side is for PvP, and then it's two-sided. The other side is for playing solo or co-op. So and then like I said, it's got this big die cut in the middle. Hello.
And just so retailers know, the large mat is not needed to play the game. It's just more aesthetic upgrade because it'll have the areas for tracking things with your bead counters and your cards and your different diagrams and things like that. So.
It works if you're going to put a copy of Triplock out in your store. Obviously, this does not take up much space at all. But if you really want to give it like a spotlight, this mat works really, really well. Speaking from experience at conventions. This mat works really, really well to help sell the game because it beautifies it and it organizes everything for you. So, yeah.
I think I'm going to trademark that term, beautifies. I like that.
So those are the two product lines that we're offering. I don't know if, again, any specific questions on Triplock or anything.
There's been no questions. To be very transparent, you've covered quite a bit, which is awesome. And you've actually covered a lot of things I thought people would ask questions on, which is really good. I did want to take a second and kind of talk logistics with everyone, because this is literally the first time we're making the announcement about Chip Theory games being part of GTS distribution. Some people have actually sent me a private message where they've been searching on our website for stuff. There are a lot of SKUs that were just added for Hoplomachus and for Triplock because, as Josh mentioned, they have very small kind of, I don't want to call them micro expansions necessarily, but they have very small expansions to be able to add on at your own pace. They are both definitely games though that kind of speak to the collector, especially with the chips and people wanting to have like one of everything. But I want to make sure everybody knew that right now we are just today starting to take pre-orders for both games and both lines. We're going to keep pre-orders open for a couple of weeks, and then towards the beginning of February, we're going to put in a stock order with Chip Theory games and have them shipped to us, and we'll have them as a release. Even though there are games that have been quote unquote released in the past, this is going to be the first time that they're actually released into retail. So we'll have a hard street date for them and be able to get them out to everybody kind of on an even playing field, so to speak. So if these are games that you're interested in, this is a great opportunity to take the time, pre-order from your GTS sales rep, or go online and order online. We're really, really proud and very appreciative to have this partnership. Chip Theory Games has been one of the companies that, like I mentioned, over the last 5 years has just continuously gone up and to the right. In terms of everything, in terms of growth, in terms of community, in terms of staff, in terms of games, in terms of quality. They're constantly improving, which is very, very hard to find actually in this industry right now. There's a lot of people who burst onto the scene, they have a great Kickstarter, they do really well, and then they kind of get lost in, oh my goodness, we actually have to run a business here. And Josh and Adam, the owners, are both extremely well-versed in the business side, and I think that has helped lead them down the road to where they are today. And I know that a lot of people, like you mentioned earlier, may know you guys from Too Many Bones as one of the most popular games you've done on Kickstarter. I think it speaks volumes to the professionalism and the level of support that you want to give retailers on how you have slowly come to this point, right? You did not want to just jump in where you're like, oh yeah, we'll put everything in the retail and everything will be great. And then all of a sudden pricing and costs and margins and everything gets out of whack and everyone gets upset. You guys have really put some thought behind, these are the products that we believe are going to do best in retail and best for retailers. These are the ones that will provide the best margin and things like that. And I think that speaks volumes for you guys, which is really good. Derek just made a comment. He said, for Hoplomachus, beside Origins, what are 3 must-carry items for a store that wants to dabble but doesn't want to plunge into the whole line? That's a great question. I'll let Josh answer that.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. So Origins is very much designed to be kind of a standalone entry point product. Scott was mentioning a lot of those other micro expansions. I don't want to say they don't work with Origins. They do, but like for example, Beast and Master, you have units that come with a Beast and a Master, and those units are meant to work together. And that works really, really well in Rise of Rome and Lost Cities, but is a little bit weird with the way that the drafting mechanic in Origins works. So Blade's Edge and Legends of the Sand would add simply more units that you can draft into Origins. Then there's the Army of One expansion is more solo scenarios for both Rise of Rome and Lost City. So outside of those two, so Blade's Edge and Legends of the Sand, if you were going to carry additional Hoplo items, I would say your next thing to do would be to grab another one of the base games, such as Rise of Rome or Lost Cities, because again, the rest of the units then from that base game are going to carry into Origins and carry into the other games as well. But then you'll have more use for those micro expansions. But yeah, so if you're looking to dabble, honestly, what I would say is just start with Origins. If you're not, and then I would probably go Rise of Rome next. After that, particularly that seems to be the Titan battles that are in Rise of Rome. Again, speaking to the solo community, seem to be some people's absolute favorite content in the entire Hoplo line. So yeah,
that's awesome. That's perfect. And obviously, of course, since this is the beginning of a new relationship, that if there are any questions, you can reach out. You can contact your GTS sales rep. You can reach out and contact me directly. My email is smorris@gtsdistribution.com. Josh, if retailers have questions for you guys, how is the best way for them to get a hold of you?
That is a good question. You're actually going to be talking to this guy, this goofy Brit back here. I have his information. Oh, I got your. Oh, the format got weird when sorry, this went from a keynote to a PowerPoint, and I didn't look at it as a PowerPoint before I threw it up on my screen.
Okay.
We got a rogue M there down at the bottom of the screen. But yeah, Andrew Chesney. Andrew Chesney here is our director of operations, and he's handling our relationship with retailers, and has kind of headed up this entire retail push that we've been looking at doing. but I'll pop it back to him because he has moved closer. He's no longer blurry. Well, he's still a little bit blurry.
Quite blurry.
Yeah, there you go.
It's probably a good thing on a Monday morning. So yeah, the big thing for us is just to be able to support GTS in whatever they need. I've already spoken to the graphic designer this morning. Melanie is going to put together some next demo here kind of posters with Triplock and Hoplomachus themes in the background. So they'll be print quality. You'll be able to download those from us. So you can either contact me directly using the email that Josh put up, or we can, I'll let Scott tell me if there's a place to actually put those links as well. So I think as well as the demo quality of these games, just the sheer tactile nature of them means you will want to put them out regularly. But obviously, if you just want to let people know that there's stock coming as well, we'll do versions of the posters with a now in stock rather than the next demo blocked out for the thing as well. Just in case not every store has got space for demos.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so anything else that retailers may need, if there's any issues with components, the customers can contact our customer service directly. We deliberately, I won't say overstaff, but we deliberately make sure that we have more than enough staff in our customer service that are very, very knowledgeable, and they will absolutely look after every customer individually if they just drop a ticket into us. One of the things, I mean, these are two of the smaller games. When you get into the Rise of Rome and Lost Cities and some of the other titles we have, there is a lot of different components and everyone is unique. It is not a case of one of my chips is scuffed or something like that, which happens in the process. When you're making tens of thousands of chips, if there's a scratch on it or whatever, these are premium games and we want people to have the premium experience. So if there is anything wrong with them, then they can just contact us and we will post them out the missing dice or scuffed chip or whatever. We will replace the stickers and get those to the customers directly. If the retail store, as a retailer, if you want to continue that relationship with the customer directly, we are happy to send it to you directly as well and let you handle the component replacement. I have no issues getting it either way. So you let us know how you want to handle it and we will make that happen.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Again, we built our company and we built our model on that direct to customer relationship. And so typically if you see, if you look at Facebook groups and that kind of thing and you see people talking about what companies have the best customer service, almost without fail, we get mentioned, and we take that very, very seriously. And part of that's building direct, part of that is just the community we've tried to foster. And part of that is because our games being as custom as they are, we do have, when you're not just mass printing punch boards and you're literally having stickers going on chips by hand, mistakes do happen, and we're ready to assist anybody who has any issues in that department as well. So, yeah.
Derek Furman asked a really good question. He said, what about demo copies, chance for freebie for live reviewers or low-cost demos otherwise? Yes, because this is a brand new relationship, Derek, there are no freebies on the webinar today. And plus these are much higher quality games than what we normally are covering in terms of component quality and stuff like that. These are like, I think you said 11.5 grams. Is that right on the chips, Josh?
Yeah. So I think, well, we did have one print run where they were a little bit less than 11.5 grams. So I said 11.5. We just say heavy chips. They're nice,
yeah, that's
weighty.
Okay.
Like if you've held the chips for, like if you held the iron clays or anything for brass, they're actually a little bit heavier than those iron clays are for brass.
Sure.
They're plastic. They're not clay like those are, but they've got a metal plug in them that makes them nice and weighty. And then the sticker that's on top is a hard top plastic coating on it to protect it with a little bit of a foil sheen. So they're really gorgeous to look at.
Yeah. But Derek, just so you know, and so everyone else knows, the games are going to be available through the GTS formal demo program. What that means is if you're a brick and mortar store, you can buy a copy of a base game, not an expansion, but a base game. So you could get the Triplock base game, you could get Hoplomachus Origins, you could get Rise of Rome if you wanted to do that. You can buy one copy for a brick and mortar location at 25% of MSRP. We'll work with Chip Theory Games on the back end, of course, to provide them reports on how many we send out and be able to cover costs and things like that. But you can get one of those for your stores, either of Origins or of Triplock or any of the base games. Ryan Woodward just asked a quick question. He said, I'm a bit late. Sorry if this was already discussed, but what product lines are going to be carried by GTS? That is a good question because we did cover that actually in the beginning. So we are going to be covering the two that you see on the aviation table right there. Hoplomachus Origins, well, actually the entire Hoplomachus line, that is Hoplomachus Origins itself, and Triplock as well. Most people know, we've kind of mentioned it a couple of times here and there, but just in case they don't, just make sure everybody's on the same page. There are two other lines that Chip Theory Games makes. Their biggest one that most people know them for is Too Many Bones, which is kind of a role-playing game with a giant twist that you don't have this big stat sheet and you have these dice that you roll. And when Josh was mentioning earlier that every single die is unique, he's not kidding. It's pretty amazing how deeply designed that game is. It's actually my top game personally of all time. That's just me. And then they also have another line that they just came out with called Cloudspire, which is a bit of a MOBA game as well. Those games are both very, very big. And I don't mean that in the sense of just complexity. They are very, very big in terms of physicality, in terms of components. And when you get into games that cost as much as they do, they're not necessarily always the best to translate into distribution type products. And that was one of the things that we talked about earlier as well, and I made a comment on it, but I really feel that Chip Theory Games has done a really good job looking at, hey, this is the games that we really believe can do the best in retail and offer the best margins in retail, not just putting the game that everyone thinks is great into retail and then messing up margins and messing up, pricing and numbers and stuff like that. Because I think the last thing anyone wants is to bring in a game that everyone has heard about and maybe at this price point, and then suddenly because it goes through distribution it becomes this price point, because then it becomes a challenge for everybody involved. So just to answer your question, Ryan, all of the Hoplomachus line will be here, as well as the entire Triplock line, and that's not to say that things won't change. Like I said, this is the beginning of a relationship and partnership, and this is the first time that Chip Theory is putting their games into distribution. And I'm sure, just as we've mentioned that they've continued to go up and to the right over the last 5 years, I'm sure that they're going to make the right decisions moving forward and how to best support the retailers in the community and bring the right products in. And for anyone going, I'm sure this may be a bit of a teaser, but Andrew is actually part of the Gamma board as well. He's one of the directors at large. I believe, Andrew, you're going to be at Gamma personally. Is that right?
I will. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So if you are a retailer going to Gamma and you want to meet up with the man, you can reach out to him at the email we provided earlier, chesney@chiptheorygames.com, and coordinate that as well. So Derek just asked a good question. What is the size of the Triplock Deluxe playmat, the one that you have laid out right there?
This playmat is...
I think it's 24 by 18 is my rough guess. I'm within an inch either way though.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. I think the dimensions are on our website. There's a product page on our website. I'm not remembering off the top of my head.
We can get that. That's easy. That's not a problem.
Absolutely.
Ryan just added as well, big capital letters, great. I'll take it. We at the Printed Meeple love Chip Theory Games. So that's good. That's excellent to hear.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think it's worth mentioning that, we have done a direct to retailer kind of promotion a couple of months back. Ryan was one of those people, and Ryan is awesome. So thank you for coming along. And I know Chris Cobb and a few others in the chat have seen our products up close. We're not adverse to trying to get into retail. It's just making sure we do the right games at the right times. Along with GTS in Reno in March, I'm also going to be at the Toy Fair in New York with Josh Carlson, the company owner. We'll be I'll be at Adepticon, demoing and selling there. UKGE, Origin, Gen Con, Essen, and PAX later in the year. So we really do try and get in front of people at all the biggest conventions. And I am absolutely open to having time to speak to retailers directly if they want to talk about how they're selling the games or marketing the games or how it's coming across, or any suggestions they might have for us. So yeah, please drop me a line and we'll either arrange time or just come by the booth and grab one of us. So Josh is sometimes at those things as well. So we let him out.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining. Really do appreciate the partnership. We're looking forward to doing a lot of great things with you guys and with the retailers with your games. Retailers, thank you very much for joining. I really appreciate everyone's attendance. Obviously, this is the first one of 2020. If you are a returning viewer, you may have noticed that our time slots changed a little bit. That was due to a lot of the feedback from a lot of our retailers at the end of your survey. They're going to be on Mondays and Wednesdays, and they are going to be at 11:30 a.m. Central Time. The other really nice thing is that we only have a single sign-on now for our webinar, so you don't have to sign up for each individual webinar. Once you register for one, you'll be able to get notifications about the new ones that are coming out, so hopefully that will make things a little easier for everybody as well. Derek did ask one last question, and I think this is a really important one and a really good one to get into. He asks, are the lines available in any mass merchants? I know that answer, but I'll let you guys answer.
Yeah, the answer is no. The answer is no. We're not on Amazon. We're not on, I mean, we're not even selling directly ourselves on Amazon or eBay or anything like that. Everything is available through Kickstarter, where the only Kickstarter, this is something as well, we don't have any Kickstarter exclusives either. So if you are getting one of our product lines, you are getting the complete, quote unquote, complete version of it. But we sell through Kickstarter, we sell directly through our website, and we sell at conventions. And thus far, that's pretty much been it, short of the odd promotion that we ran direct to retailers before. But in terms of mass availability, the answer is no. And for now, anyway, the answer is that we have no plans to go that route. Again, the game's production level simply doesn't really allow it for most of our stuff. And so we have to tightly control our inventory. Even our print runs are very, very expensive, compared to a lot of other companies our size. They take longer because we're gluing we're gluing fabric onto neoprene and hand stickering chips and making dice and all that kind of thing. So for the type of games we're making, that mass availability just doesn't even really make sense for us. So yeah, so this is a really unique opportunity. And if you missed it in the intro when I was talking about it, this is a way for us to dip our toe in the water of what a distribution deal might look like, whether it's to continue offering these in the future or whether it's a future game that it would make sense. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think most retailers would be hard pressed to find a design studio or publisher in the last 5 years who has grown as much as you guys have, that has the stance of, we're not selling direct to Amazon. I think that's it's extremely hard to find, and it's obviously a very big support mechanism for brick and mortar hobby stores, which is really, really good. There's always, of course, third-party sellers who will try and jack up the prices online, but that's nothing that you guys are doing, let alone, if anything, it's funny, the only times I've ever seen your guys' stuff online is ridiculously overpriced.
Oh, yeah.
I remember seeing Too Many Bones at one point for like $400 on Amazon, and I was like, "Good Lord, that's crazy, right?"
Yeah.
So,
well, there tends to be 2 to 3 to 4 month gaps sometimes between reprints of our stuff. Again, because it's so expensive to print, we often wait until we do a Kickstarter or something else along those lines in order to even afford to reprint a lot of our stuff. So, yeah.
That's good news. That's good stuff. Well, again, retailers, thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you on more of these. And by all means, Josh, Adam, Andrew, this is not a one and done. As we develop the relationship, as we have more opportunities, definitely want to have you guys back and introduce new games to the retailers. Derek just asked one last question. Will GTS be ordering the first wave to, I think that is, remain in stock for a while? Yes. So there are some things that are limited in stock supply. So I would definitely say to get your pre-orders in for the expansions that you would want. Those are probably the most limited in terms of supply, or we're talking, multiple hundreds, if not, potentially thousands here. So it should not be a problem at all to meet demand on the very beginning. Obviously, if that changes, we'll obviously let everybody know and keep everybody updated. But yeah, we are looking, like I said, to take the next couple of weeks, collect pre-orders from retailers, and then set hard street dates to be able to have everything even across the board for everyone. And also that can give you some time to talk to your GTS sales rep and get one of the demo copies in, and maybe possibly, pre-seed and pre-wire some of your consumers for the games coming in as well, which would be great. So, But yes, the goal is to keep them in stock and get them in stock and keep them in stock and continue to sell the games. This is definitely not a one and done type thing. This is going to be looking at it as a long-term partnership. So. Awesome. Thank you all very much. Always appreciate everyone's time. And for the rest of the week, I hope you have a wonderful time in the stores. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.